Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or The Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about my number one overall draft pick strategy from the first overall pick in a 12-team draft. We're going to be breaking down my thought process into every single round of the draft, talking about my targets from rounds 1 all the way up until round 10, and then I'm going to be breaking down an actual mock draft, talking about how I look to implement strategy in a real draft, because while I can break down the average draft positions from rounds 1 all the way up until rounds 10 and the guys that I'm targeting, the mock draft shows the true randomness, right? Some crazy things are going to happen in your fantasy football drafts, and I think the mock draft helps highlight that. But before we could get into things, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at Notorious FNTSY. So without further ado, let's get into this number one overall pick draft strategy. So the first round, when you enter the draft and you know you're the first overall pick, please come into the draft knowing exactly what you want to do, right? For me, there are 4 players that you can choose from at the number one overall pick. It's Jamar Chase, Christian McCaffrey, Tyreek Hill, and Justin Jefferson. Now, if Cooper Kupp gets healthy by the time we get closer to the season, you could consider him as well. But for me, I'm going with Justin Jefferson. I love the upside of Jefferson in one of the most pass-heavy offenses in the NFL. I'm not trying to overthink things, get cute at the number one overall pick. I'm going to go with the number one ranked player, the guy that goes number one overall in a majority of fantasy football drafts this offseason. So we are going to go with Justin Jefferson. Again, you could try and go with McCaffrey, Chase, Hill. That's fine as well, but I would go with Justin Jefferson. Moving into the second and third round picks, 24 and 25. At ADP, based upon ADP, the picks would be Jalen Waddle and Mark Andrews. Honestly, I would be fine if my draft came to a close and my first round pick was Justin Jefferson, my second and third round pick were Jalen Waddle, and Mark Andrews. I would be very excited about that. But there is a chance, obviously, that some players fall. So if Garrett Wilson was to fall, if Josh Jacobs were to fall, even with his holdout situation, I don't think he's going to actually hold out the whole entire season. I think he's coming back. He's going to be ready for week 1 like he never left. So Garrett Wilson or Josh Jacobs, if they miraculously fell to me or Tony Pollard, I would be very excited to draft them. Some other picks, guys that go a little bit later that are more likely to be available that I would like to target: Devontae Smith, T. Higgins, Chris Olave, and Calvin Ridley. Now, I know Calvin Ridley's ADP is in the 4th round, and I really try to keep things safe early on and not reach a crazy amount. It wouldn't shock me at all if, with how much hype Calvin Ridley is getting, if he ended up being a 3rd round pick by the time you guys are actually drafting in late August or early September. Moving now to the 4th and the 5th round. At ADP, George Kittle and Dameon Pierce would be the picks at pick 48 and 49. I have been someone that is kind of talked down on George Kittle. I think Brock Purdy is great for George Kittle, but ultimately they have Debo, they have Christian McCaffrey, they have Brandon Ayuk. If the whole core stays healthy with Brock Purdy, do I think that George Kittle is going to have some big games? Of course, but do I think that George Kittle is going to potentially outscore Travis Kelce, outscore Mark Andrews? Probably not. You can make the argument easily that Kelce's the number one target on his team. That's very easy to do. You can argue that Andrews is the top target on his team. There is just no way in hell that with all those guys healthy, Kittle could be the number one target. If I'm looking at a tight end kind of in that range of Kittle, I would much rather wait for Darren Waller, right? Maybe wait even later for Kyle Pitts. These guys that I think could be the legitimate tight end one at the end of the season. Dameon Pierce, I would definitely consider in that range. If someone was to fall, I would be absolutely erect underneath my laptop if Calvin Ridley ended up falling to me. He would be a smash pick. I wouldn't even have to think twice. I would pick him in 0.3 seconds. And then if I wanted to go quarterback, I love Justin Fields. I haven't ranked as my quarterback 5. I think he could finish as high as the quarterback 1. Insane rushing upside in an offense that I expect to get better, an offense that I think is going to be passing the ball a little bit more this season. If we don't end up getting anyone to fall, my picks would be DJ Moore, Christian Watson, or DeAndre Hopkins in that range. I get that a lot of people are scared of DeAndre Hopkins because the Tennessee Titans are where receivers go to die. I think DeAndre Hopkins has at least another year in him where he could be a top 12 receiver. I think Christian Watson gets slept upon because he's on the Packers, and I like DJ Moore because, again, I like Justin Fields a ton. We saw DJ Moore take a ball from behind the line of scrimmage 60 yards to the crib in that preseason game. Now, I don't want you guys to overreact to preseason, but I already thought DJ Moore had those skills. He's just been buried by the fact that the quarterback position in Carolina has been awful his whole career. Moving to round 6 and 7, picks 72 and 73. At ADP, our picks would be Brandon Ayuk and Mike Evans. I don't hate either player. Brandon Ayuk's a guy I'm starting to get a little bit more comfortable drafting. But again, I don't really feel like he's a super safe pick. I feel like week in and week out, there's going to be some big games. There's going to be some down games. There's a lot of target competition there. Again, not saying he's a guy I'm fading. I actually like Mike Evans a little bit more. I understand that Baker Mayfield is far from the ideal quarterback, or maybe they go with Kyle Trask, but I just feel like Evans is destined to get over 1,000 receiving yards. I think this might be a huge season out of Evans. Everyone just seems to forget that he's one of the best receivers in the NFL. If someone was to fall, this is a range where there are a lot of running backs I like. I like Cam Akers a ton. I understand that he bent a lot of you guys over the table last season, right? If you drafted Cam Akers, he sucked ass, you cut him, and then maybe the guy you played in the championship picked him up and he smacked you up at the end, right? Akers got real hot. Madison, there is some worries about Ty Chandler there. Maybe they end up bringing in Kareem Hunt, but ultimately Madison's the guy there. James Conner, there's a worry about his health. There's also the worry about the fact that Kyler Murray might not come back, but if you actually do some in-depth analysis into this team and into how Connor has performed without Kyler, you actually figure out that Connor is better without Kyler. And then other picks, right? More average picks, right? If someone doesn't fall, DJ, Deontay Johnson, David Montgomery, or Michael Pittman Jr. Both Michael Pittman and Deontay Johnson could finish top 6, top 8 in terms of targets. David Montgomery's in a Detroit Lions offense that I am ecstatic about this season. Even with Jahmyr Gibbs there, I think David Montgomery has some huge touchdown upside as well as some big rushing upside. And if something was to happen to Jahmyr Gibbs, knock on wood, we don't root for injuries, David Montgomery might be a guy that every single week would be in the top 12 of my rankings. Moving to round 8 and 9, pick 96 and 97. At ADP, our picks would be 2 Saints, Jamal Williams, as well as Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas is a guy that's kind of interesting because there's a lot of unknown, right? We do know how great of a player he is, but we have no idea how healthy he is, right? Will he get hurt lacing his cleats up before the game? Will he fucking have his hand get stuck in the window of his car when he goes to roll it up before the game and he's out for the season? Or is he going to stay healthy for maybe 14, 15 games and potentially reclaim his spot on the throne as one of the best receivers in the NFL? Jamal Williams got a lot of touchdown upside in that Saints offense, especially really early on without Alvin Kamara. So they're both guys I would consider. If someone fell, though, I would be elated to get Jordan Addison-Ray or Jahan Dotson. I think Dotson should be going in like the 6th round. Same thing with Jordan Addison. Addison's on one of the most pass-heavy offenses in the NFL. Jahan Dotson looked hot towards the end of last season, and I think that with Eric Bieniemy as the offensive coordinator, that will help out Jahan Dotson. In terms of other picks, if some other things happen here, Khalil Herbert or Antonio Gibson would be guys that I would look to target as well. So if Jordan Addison, Jahan Dotson don't fall, Khalil Herbert and Antonio Gibson are great late round running back selections. 2 guys on Washington that we talk about. I know the Commanders aren't going to be the best team ever, but I like Gibson and Dotson at ADP a ton. And I think Gibson is in for a very safe year at running back. And then Khalil Herbert, I just think he's the running back 1 in Chicago. And to close out with round 10, pick 120. If you guys have enjoyed thus far, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button before we get into the mock draft. The ADP pick is Jerick McKinnon. I don't want anything to do with Jerick McKinnon. I know he's going to have like 3 games where he miraculously scores 25 fucking fantasy points, but I just don't want him on my team. If someone falls, Charbonnet, somehow maybe Gibson could fall to you, Quentin Johnston or Zay Flowers. Other picks would be Devin 2 Chains in Miami without Dalvin Cook, Sky with 2 Wise more, taking that upside shot on potentially landing the number 1 receiver on the Chiefs. And then Elijah Moore's ADP just makes no sense. He should be going much higher than the 10th round. Again, if you've watched a lot of my videos, I am very high on this Cleveland Browns offense this season. I think Deshaun Watson bounces back in a big way. But before we move on in to the mock draft section of today's video, I would like to give you guys a quick word from our friends and our sponsor over at Manscaped. As draft season approaches, don't neglect the most important draft pick of them all, your game balls. We all know how injuries can ruin a season, so let Manscaped take care of that Reggie Bush of yours with their skin-safe technology. This should guarantee that you have a smooth ride into the playoffs. The leader in the below-the-waist grooming technology have a championship lineup with their Performance Package 4.0, and it's time for you to do the same. Join the 9 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped and get ready for kickoff by going to manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping using code Notorious. Now, we have all had that scenario where before your lady friend or your guy friend comes over, you gotta go shave down there, and sometimes maybe things go wrong, right? It looks like there's been a massacre in your shower when you go to shave. Well, that won't be a problem when you use Manscaped. So again, guys, make sure that you get 20% off plus free shipping with code Notorious at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code Notorious at manscaped.com. It is time to put the PP back in PPR and get a grip on your pigskin this season with Manscaped. Alright, so for the mock draft portion of this video, the settings are very basic. It is a full PPR draft, 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, flex kicker, defense, and 6 bench spots. So let's get into things. Again, if you are the number 1 overall pick and you know that you are going to be the number 1 overall pick entering into your draft, please do not take a minute and a half with a thumb up your ass trying to figure out who you are going to pick. You should know who you are going to pick. Again, it is between 4 players. It is between Jefferson, McCaffrey, Chase, or Tyreek Hill for me. Ultimately, I have Justin Jefferson ranked as my wide receiver 1. I love this offense for him. This is a team that is going to have to be throwing the ball at an incredibly high rate because the Minnesota Vikings defense is pretty bad. So Justin Jefferson is going to get a lot of opportunity even deeper into games to score a lot of fantasy points. I love, even though Kirk Cousins isn't the best quarterback on earth, I love Justin Jefferson this year. He is my clear number 1 overall pick in basically every single draft. Again, you could go with Tyreek, you could go with Christian McCaffrey, Jamar Chase, and if Cooper Kupp is fully good to go a couple weeks from now, you could even go Cooper Kupp at 1 overall, but a majority of the times, I am going to go with Justin Jefferson. So after going with Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler, Cooper Kupp, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Stephon Diggs, Saquon Barkley, Bijan Robinson, A.J. Brown, and Pat Mahomes. The second round opens with CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown, 9-inch Nicholas Chubb, Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams, Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry, Jalen Waddle away, Waddle till the very next day, Josh Allen, Mark Andrews, and we are up on the clock. Surprisingly, seeing Mark Andrews go in the second round, he's definitely a guy that I'm more comfortable taking in the third round. So we started our draft off with Justin Jefferson, and for me, the clear target here is going to be Tony Pollard. I do like Jalen Hurts, and maybe we swing with him in our third round selection, but Tony Pollard for me is just going to be a guy that sees so much work in this Cowboys offense. He's on the franchise tag. They are going to give him a shitload of carries because of that. His backup running back is Deuce Vaughn, who's 5'5". He's very fun to watch because he could like run underneath the offensive line. It's hard for the defense to see him, but at the end of the day, Tony Pollard is the guy in this offense. And I think with Kellen Moore being gone now, that is going to help out Tony Pollard catch even more passes. So our team is Justin Jefferson and Tony Pollard. Right now, for me, it is between either Jalen Hurts, Chris Olave, T. Higgins, Devontae Smith. I would even consider reaching for Calvin Ridley. I think Calvin Ridley could end up being a very early third-round pick, maybe even a second-round pick come by the end of August. His hype train is really starting to heat up, but for me here, we are going to go with the quarterback, right? This is a very balanced approach to the draft, and anytime I can get a quarterback like Jalen Hurts, who I think could easily be the number 1 quarterback in fantasy because his offense is loaded to the gills with talent. His offensive line is a brick wall. I believe very heavily in Jalen Hurts. I think Jalen Hurts will be the quarterback 1 at the end of the season. Some people might say I'm crazy. They'd rather have Mahomes or Josh Allen. I won't really debate with you too much on that because I think Allen or Mahomes could be the QB1, but I like Jalen Hurts' shot to be the QB1, and a lot of the times he comes off the board as the quarterback number 3, so things feel great getting him as the quarterback 3 again with that upside to be the quarterback 1. A very balanced start to the draft. Like I said, 1 running back, back, 1 wide receiver, and 1 quarterback. And I think at the 101, this is going to be a very typical strategy that I go ahead and go into the draft looking to potentially do. Now, again, we talked about it at the beginning of the video. You don't want to put yourself in some type of a metaphorical box saying, I need to go with a running back and a quarterback in the second and the third round. But if things fall this way, I would be very excited to start my draft this way. After Jalen Hurts, Higgins, Breece Hall, Ramondre Stevenson, Devontae Smith, Joe Burrow, Chris Olave, Travis Etienne, Najee Harris, Debo Samuel, DK Metcalf, Jahmyr Gibbs. The fourth opens with Joe Mixon, Kenneth Walker, Keenan Allen, TJ Hawkinson, Justin Fields, Lamar Jackson, Calvin Ridley, Terry McLaurin, Justin Herbert, the pervert, George Kittle, and Aaron Jones. So again, we have Hurts, Pollard, and Jefferson on this team. Looking at the running backs, they do feel a little gross to reach for in the 4th round. I definitely like Dameon Pierce the most out of these running backs, but at least one of these picks has to be wide receivers because I really like this range of wide receivers in drafts. Guys like Amari Cooper, DeAndre Hopkins, DJ Moore, Wiki, Jerry Jeudy, Drake London, Christian Watson. I like a bunch of those guys. And even the ones that I don't love in this range, I still feel like I'm not going to feel like an idiot at the end of the draft, right? If I draft them. For me, Amari Cooper is my highest ranked wide receiver. I believe very heavily in this Cleveland Browns offense. I think they are going to bounce back heavily from what we saw at the end of last season. I think Deshaun Watson is going to look a whole lot better. Now, I know the report from training camp today was that he threw 3 picks up against the defense that they're going up against. It's not the Browns defense. They're playing with another team. At the end of the day, I'm not panicking about one bad training camp session. If you live and die by every training camp session, you are going to end the preseason without any hair, right? You're going to pull all your hair out. It's going to stress you out to the maximum. So we added Amari Cooper to this team. And again, while I do like Dameon Pierce, ultimately, I think I can wait at the running back position. I think the number 1 overall pick lends itself very well to the hero running back strategy. A lot of the time with the 2.12, there's going to be a running back that falls there that I am comfortable taking. Sometimes you even see Derrick Henry or the worries about Josh Jacobs potentially holding out makes him fall all the way to the 212. So Tony Pollard's a guy I definitely like to attack there, and a running back in the 2nd round would be my preferred way of drafting, assuming that a running back that I like falls there, right? I'm not reaching for Breece Hall or Stevenson, anyone like that. I'd rather take Waddle there or T. Higgins, one of those wide receivers, if we don't end up getting Tony Pollard there. So looking at the running backs, again, Pierce, Sanders. I like Dameon Pierce, but he's a guy I like in the middle of the 5th round more. Now, again, if I felt like I needed a running back here, say I went Justin Jefferson, then I went with another wide receiver, maybe I would force things, but I'm just trying to go with the best player available, and I think right here it's either DeAndre Hopkins, Christian Watson, or Wiki DJ Moore. I think based upon ADP here, you really could go with any of them. D-Hop's the highest ranked wide receiver. For the purposes of this draft, though, we're going to go with DJ Moore. I am a huge fan of DJ Moore this season. I think that the Chicago Bears passing attack is going to look a lot better. I think they'll be throwing the ball at a lot higher rate than people think. Now, obviously, they're not going to pull a rabbit out of a hat and magically become the most pass-heavy offense in the NFL like the Chiefs or some shit like that, but I don't think they're going to be the most run-heavy team in the NFL. After Wiki DJ Moore, we see Miles Sanders, DeAndre Hopkins, Dameon Pierce, Alexander Madison, Drizzy Drake London, Jerry Jeudy, DeAndre Swift, Cam Akers, Christian Watson, J.K. Dobbins, Kyle Pitts, Alvin Kamara, who is just a terrible 6th-round pick, Brandon Ayuk, Trevor Lawrence, touchdown Jesus, Michael Pittman, James Conner, Chris Godwin, Dallas Goedert, Darren Waller, Christian Kirk at the 6.9, very nice, I like, Hollywood Brown, and Dalvin Cook. Interesting to see where Dalvin Cook's ADP settles over the next couple of days. Right now, he's a guy I'm kind of avoiding because I feel like his ADP is going to skyrocket far too high, but in the 6th round, I definitely get it. Breece Hall was activated off the pup. Maybe they're both playing week 1, but my real belief is that for the first couple of weeks, you don't pay Dalvin Cook $8 million plus for him to just be the backup for Breece Hall these first couple of games, right? I think they're going to ease Breece Hall in, use the tip technique that I talk about all the time, and it's going to be the Dalvin Cook show for the first couple of games. Someone mentioned it in the comment section. How many times do you guys think the commentators of the game are going to mention that it's Dalvin versus James Cook in week 1, Monday Night Football? How many times do you think they're going to say it? I think they might honestly say it 75 total times in the game. It's like, oh, look at Dalvin Cook with this run. It's like, oh, you know, James Cook is his brother? It's like when you figure out that Russell Wilson played baseball or Patrick Mahomes' dad played baseball. Who would have known? So sorry to kind of jump away from the point of the video, though. So again, our team is Jalen Hurts, Tony Pollard, Justin Jefferson, Amari Cooper, and Wiki DJ Moore. So looking at the running backs on the board at this point, it definitely feels like there's only one here that I feel like is actually worthy of like a 6th, 7th round pick, and that would be David Montgomery for me. I think that David Montgomery, even with Jahmyr Gibbs in this offense, has the upside to finish as a top 18-ish running back. I think he's going to have multiple top 12 games. I love this Detroit Lions offense. I think they're going to be able to push the ball down the field very effectively. I think when they get on the goal line, Jahmyr Gibbs is going to get yanked, and David Montgomery is going to get inserted and dive his way into the end zone, Jamal Williams style. And then we are going to have to go probably with a wide receiver in this spot, because while I would be fine maybe double tapping running back here, I think the best course of action would be just to load up on more wide receivers. A lot of the tight ends are gone that I like. I'm fine drafting Ingram, Freiermuth, Njoku, Schultz, but not in the 7th round, right? We've already seen the big tight ends come off the board. So at this point in the draft, our strategy would be to pivot back to the wide receiver position and then maybe have someone that's interchangeable with DJ Moore or Amari Cooper on the team. So we're going to lean here with best wide receiver available. I am going to reach a little bit and go with Deontay Johnson. I talked about him in the earlier part of today's video. Deontay Johnson is one of my favorite wide receivers in fantasy this year. I think the volume is going to be insane for him. I like to chase volume in fantasy football. It might technically be a reach based upon ADP. Maybe miraculously some way he would fall back to me in the 8th round, but I think Kenny Pickett's going to look a lot better. I think the offensive line's going to look a lot better, and I have high hopes for Deontay Johnson this season. And if Deontay Johnson wasn't there, I probably would have went with either Lockett, Mike Evans, maybe even reached a little bit on Jordan Addison. Early on in the drafts, I think you shouldn't be reaching really at all in the first couple of rounds. You don't really want to reach a round down, even though I'm willing to do so for Calvin Ridley. I don't think you want to be making crazy reaches because the ADPs early on are very fair. But as you get deeper into the draft, like in the 7th round here, where I got Deontay Johnson, he might have potentially fallen to the 7-10, right? Maybe I reached 9 picks, but there's a big difference in reaching in the middle of the draft compared to at the beginning of the draft. And then at the end of the draft, it doesn't really matter at all. Like, if you want your guy, just go ahead and get that guy that you want at whatever position you are searching for. So looking at our roster right now, I think our best course of action is to continue to kind of wait on tight end and probably just sprinkle a couple running backs in here. Again, I like David Montgomery and I'm very confident in him, but I think on a week in, week out standpoint, we may be able to find a running back deeper down here that might be a weekly starter for our team. So we're going to go with Jamal Williams first. Jamal Williams is definitely a guy that I think for the first 3 weeks of the season, when Alvin Kamara is suspended, is a must-start candidate. I think that he is going to be seeing a gazillion touches on this Saints offense. I don't project the Saints to be one of the best teams in the NFL, but if you don't acknowledge the fact that their schedule on paper is soft as baby shit, we could see some huge games out of Jamal Williams early, and then we are going to go with Khalil Herbert. I think Khalil Herbert's ADP is going to continue to rise because Khalil Herbert is the clear running back one on the Chicago Bears, in my opinion. Now, you might be thinking, Nick, you probably think the Bears aren't going to be that good. So why do you want to draft a running back and a receiver on that team? Well, the thing is, I think they are going to score a lot of points. Even if their record at the end of the season, they might have 4 fucking wins, but they're going to have multiple fantasy viable players. Plus, every single week, Khalil Herbert isn't necessarily in my lineup. It's not like I drafted Khalil Herbert and DJ Moore in the 3rd and 4th round. I drafted DJ Moore, wiki in the 5th round, and then I got Khalil Herbert in the 9th round. It's going to be interesting to see where Anthony Richardson starts to fall in these fantasy drafts because he was named today the starter of the team, so there's no more of that kind of slight worry in the back of your mind that Gardner Minshew is going to play some games. It is locked and loaded that Anthony Richardson's the guy, and it kind of seems like what I would think is they're not going to pull him out, right? If Anthony Richardson's struggling, they're just going to leave him in the game. So looking at the tight ends, a lot of tight ends are flying off the board, and multiple teams have taken 2 tight ends already. This is one of the most annoying things about more casual leagues is people are going to take a tight end, right? They're going to draft Darren Waller in the 6th round, but for some godforsaken reason, they think they should take Dalton Kincaid in the 10th round. This guy takes Goddard, or this girl, this computer, this fucking Autobot takes Goddard in the 6th, Freiermuth in the 9th. It doesn't make sense. You paid the high price. You paid the draft capital for Goddard. You're assuming Goddard's going to smash. Why are you drafting a backup tight end? But it happens. It's the same thing with quarterbacks. Someone might draft Mahomes in the 1st round, and then in the 9th round, draft a quarterback, like right here. This team drafted Pat Mahomes, and then they drafted Kirk O'Chains. Don't do that. It doesn't make sense. So we're going to go tight end here so we don't get cucked out of a potential tight end that I actually like. So we go with Tyler Higbee there. Going to go back to the wide receiver market here. We're waiting till the end of the draft to draft our kicker and our defense. All right, so we have 4 rounds left. Again, we aren't going to be handcuffing our quarterback like we just talked about. We paid the price for Jalen Hurts in the 3rd round. There's no need to draft some backup quarterback like fucking Geno Smith or Russell Wilson, something like that. Don't do that. No need to draft a backup tight end, even though we waited to draft Higbee. I'm not drafting a backup tight end. I'm really confident on Higbee this season. So I think we're going to close out the draft with a wide receiver and a running back. If your league has an IR spot for suspended players, I think Jameson Williams is a pretty solid add. Obviously, you're not going to be able to play him for the first 6 games of the season, and you probably won't even want to play him the first couple games he comes back. But I think that's a guy that could be a quote-unquote league winner, right? Comes back, comes in hot at the end of the season, and helps you carry your fantasy team to the championship. And again, super late in the draft, we are hunting for maximum upside. I think Sky Moore could end up as the #1 receiver on the Chiefs. Now, we all know that Pat Mahomes really does spread the ball around a bunch besides just force-feeding the ball down the throat of Travis Kelce. But I think Sky Moore is a guy that, while he might be risky, right, he could be a guy that we cut off our team 2 weeks into the season, right? Kadarius Toney's back. Maybe Kadarius Toney just defies all fucking odds and ends up as amazing. Or maybe one of the other wide receivers like Rashee Rice end up stepping up. But I still think Sky Moore is worthy of that deep shot. And then we are going to go running back here to close out our draft. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 running backs currently on the squad, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wide receivers. So closing out with a balanced approach of a team again. Started off balanced, finished balanced, as all things should be. Shout out to Thanos. So we're going to go running back here. We're going to go with Tank Bigsby. He is a guy that I'm just insta-clicking late in fantasy football drafts. I think that Tank Bigsby has league-winning upside. If something was to happen to Travis Etienne, he might be a top 12 running back in my rankings weekly. And if you're in a true pinch, I think you can even start him when Etienne is playing. I think he's going to get some pass-catching opportunities, and I think he might even take the goal line work from Travis Etienne. So now we're going kicker, defense. The strategy for kicker and defense is you want to draft a defense playing a not so hot opponent in week 1. I know the Patriots have a great defense, the Dolphins have a great defense, but they have tough matchups week 1. The Washington Commanders have a very soft start to the schedule. They get the Arizona Cardinals, and then they get Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos. Maybe the Denver Broncos are a complete and utter disaster, and you can play the Washington left hands up. Who are we, the Commanders, 2 weeks in a row? If maybe the Broncos look good week 1, then you want to backtrack on starting them, but you could just pick up another defense. I make videos every single week during the season on which defenses you want to go ahead and stream weekly. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, like button for that. And then for the kicker, I just go with best kicker available. I'm not really overthinking things right now in the middle of August, but for your actual fantasy football draft, I would just go based upon the rankings that are on the screen. They're normally pretty average, right? I don't think you're really going to go wrong. I'm going to go with the boy, Cameron Dicker the kicker of the LA Chargers. And please do not draft a backup defense or a backup kicker. That is one of the dumbest things I see happen. That is how you allocate your bench spots very poorly. You want to have running backs, receivers, sometimes a quarterback or a tight end on your bench. You don't need a defense. You don't need a kicker. Why the fuck would you want 2 kickers on your team? I get maybe if you pull the trigger early and you draft like Tyler Bass, maybe on Bass's bye week, you don't want to cut him. You want to cut someone on your bench, and then you're holding 2 kickers, but that's only for 1 week, right? That's not for the whole season. If you draft them, you're probably holding them for the whole season, and you're a buffoon. So to recap our team here, Jalen Hurts, Tony Pollard, David Montgomery, Justin Jefferson, Amari Cooper, Tyler Higbee, Wiki DJ Moore, Cameron Dicker, the Commanders, Deontay Johnson, Jamal with 2 A's, Williams, Khalil Herbert, Sky Moore, and Tank Bigsby. So let me know down below in the comment section what you guys thought about this team. Is this how you're looking to attack a draft from the #1 overall? Was this video helpful? Would you like me to talk about it maybe in a different way? I love you guys all so much. I hope you all have a great rest of your guys' day. And as always, good boy. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Good boy.